All right, so I'm here with Phineas, a good friend of mine. He's inspired me in many ways to get into weddings. You're the first voice in my ear, maybe weddings,
Yeah.
And you've done a ton. So maybe you can just throw your numbers out there because it's very impressive, the numbers of weddings and the stuff you're involved with weddings.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to be here. It's just really fun. First podcast that I've been on, and I'm just really into podcasts in general. The way that the communication goes and the platform and everything with, recent technology with social media. I'm a little older, so I didn't grow up with the social media, but now I'm like hooked on it. And it's such a good way to have an authentic, kind of just sincere, honest way of relating to people and, getting some information about their business or, whatever they're interested in. So, my wedding journey, it's been getting close to 10 years now.
Wow.
And done just a little over 1,000 events. So
a little over 1,000.
A little over 1,000, yeah. Yeah, right. So
1,000 weddings.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when I first started out, I didn't think that I would be getting into the business at all, And actually, a mutual friend of ours, John Rogers, who was a videographer, he said, this property that you have is so beautiful, and the landscaping and everything, maybe you could do weddings.
Yeah, because he was photos and video stuff, right?
He was.
Yeah.
And he would film weddings.
Oh, he did video too?
He did. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he personally, because I never saw him actually do it.
Yeah.
But he came to the property and he's like, this is just the best backdrop, and it's an intimate setting versus like in the public where, people are going to hotels or they're on the beach and they just have people walking by that are random. He's like, This will be a different flavor.
Yeah.
And I thought I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
That's going to be too much work.
Right.
And this is, a little bit of my younger years. And what I didn't realize is that, first of all, you don't know what you don't know.
Yes,
true. Right? Things unfold as you discover things. And of course, if I would have tracked back in my life and thought about how many things that I'd learned so far, so many things that I'd learned that I never knew anything about. So this is going to be another one of them. And so I was just a little bit overwhelmed by it, and I'd already been developing the business. There was family reunions coming over to the property, and so many different things were happening, but no events specifically where I had to do any kind of coordination or planning or anything like that. And so we eventually just had one, and people were super, super happy. And so we started looking into the advertising and developing the websites and stuff, and just inviting more word of mouth, and it just started to grow, and we started to just hone our craft.
Wow.
And eventually became just super popular, and now we got a really nice Instagram page and nice videos, and so yeah, it's been super popular.
So that was your jump into weddings.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we just started off really small. I mean, right now we have a whole setup where we do planning, coordination. We have a party rental division, tents, tables, chairs, linens, just working with DJs and preferred vendors, and the list just goes on and on.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, for someone watching, who's thinking, okay, I'm getting married, I'm going to be planning my wedding. Most people that I've talked to, because I have a wedding venue and people come, and it's a lot of just this overwhelming look on their face. They're just the mind's reeling, and every time, and when they come to a place and we talk about things, so many questions, which is great, and you probably get this too. It's just so many things. And when you work with someone with your type of experience, they don't know what they don't know, right? Like they have no idea. You've done 1,000. I mean, it's not even an exaggeration. So you can this is important. This isn't important. This is something that, because people coming in, they've never planned an event before, what to speak of a wedding, which is, I mean, it's got to be one of the biggest events. I mean, you've probably done other events at your place too, little things here. And I mean, nothing's like a wedding, is it? Is there anything like a wedding that's been close?
Yeah. I mean, so we did some corporate events, but there's no just big moment where if the timing was off, it would just be such a letdown. It would be super easy to deal with. Even, 1-year-old birthday parties, anniversaries, even vow renewals, the pressure's not there.
Right. It's that first kiss, that one moment, everything leading up to that big event. The video's running, the photography's running. You got potentially hundreds of people flying in, spending thousands of dollars, right? I mean, when you keep stacking the stakes, they've been thinking about this for 20 years possibly, right? Pinterest boards they've been doing since they were 15 or 16. Some brides have told me. So, there's this pressure, right? And so to have someone who's done 1,000, and I appreciate you because we work together in some weddings, and you come over, and sometimes I'm a bit like, oh my God, and you're just kind of like,
Yeah.
because you've done 1,000,
Yeah.
you've seen it all,
Right.
and that's super valuable for someone to have, to have someone with that type of experience in their corner.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what's really nice too, especially for a bride that's nervous, and a lot of times this is their first marriage. Occasionally it's the second one, and those ladies are just way chill in comparison,
Right?
Because they went through it once, which
Yeah.
was a really big deal. And I actually just recently had an inquiry from a lady. She's like, "This is my second time," and I was like a little bit saddened by it because she was just making it like it was like just nothing, really,
Right.
And but she really meant, because I could kind of tell in her heart that it was just like, we're not going to put a lot of money into the budget, just our closest friends and family, and
Right.
just make it special for our second time. But when you make them feel comfortable with your competence, and I always say this, and a lot of the things that I kind of study is that you become more confident naturally when you become more competent, and through practice, just interacting, going through the challenges of what didn't work and what did work. I mean, our whole strategy, because I'd never really studied anything about weddings, was just trial and error. And of course, some people did suffer a little bit from me not understanding the way that it went.
Sure.
But also at the same time, I attracted people in the beginning that were more casual, because they could already tell from the way the venue looked, the way the venue was presented online, and also me just talking, that I didn't know that much about what I was doing. And so it was kind of going to be like a backyard wedding where they were going to pretty much take care of most of it, and I was just the venue.
Right.
But then as I got better at it, my expertise came through, and they would ask me all these questions. And a lot of times I'll get these emails like, sorry for all the questions. And I'm like, more questions, the better. Like, let's just really get this nailed down to exactly what you want. And it's all about their vision, what they're really looking for. And we just orchestrate it, and we just have the contacts, and we have the understanding of what it takes. And that makes them feel really at ease. And then there you go.
Yeah, because if you miss this kind of thing, you miss maybe the audio setup, right? Or some little chain in some little link in the chain can really throw things off if you don't have things lined up. You don't appreciate certain aspects of the wedding, and you focus on maybe something you shouldn't, or stress over something you shouldn't. And there's things you should stress on to make sure that it's working well, because it's a big event, and you want it to go well. You want your guests to have a great time. And I mean, was there anything in particular you've seen over these 1,000 weddings of that's not that big a deal, and sometimes people just focus on this thing, and at the end of the day, is it that important? Is there an aspect that you find that there's one that stands out at all?
Yeah, there's quite a few. This one comes up quite a bit, and it really doesn't matter that much. But also, I can understand the sentiment as well, is that a lot of times if we were to tell the couple or their particular coordinator, if we weren't handling it, that our team is going to be setting up at, say, like 9:00, and say there's only 50 people. We know that it only takes us maybe about 20 minutes to set up a ceremony, and the ceremony is not till 3. So if we showed up at 9:30 to do it, it wasn't like it was the end of the world. And there may be some logistical reasons why we weren't able to do exactly what we needed to do. But also at the same time, we understand that punctuality, it gives you a sense that there's a lot of care and respect there, and that everything else is going to run on time. But for us, we just know that, well, it's going to be set up at 9:30, or it's going to be set up at 10. And ultimately, it doesn't have to be set up for hours. And so there's just no stress. So when we're just sitting there talking to them and letting them know that they'll be here in 20 minutes, there's no worries at all.
Right.
We can basically convey that part of it's, not that big of a deal.
Right.
Right. And that really goes a lot of times with the vendors. A lot of times a wedding coordinator will tell me that they're going to be at there 11 and they get there at noon.
Yeah.
It's just, there's just no problem with things like that.
Right.
There are, however, a couple caveats to that, where there's such an elaborate wedding, super detail oriented. If you look at the timeline, because we always get the full timeline from morning until night, every 5 minutes is carved out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah. And there's little bells. Boom,
Really?
boom. Yeah. There's a few people that are like that.
Wow.
It's usually 1 in 100, maybe 1 in 200. So it's not often. But they just have all kinds of really special things that are going on to, it's just their particular personality, and that makes it them feel extra special.
So that piques my interest of like, okay, so you've done 1,000. Is there a couple that stand out of just like, wow?
Yeah. The only thing that I'm actually, because I'm still really in the learning process. I mean, you know, whatever you're in, say you're a doctor or you're, you know, an artist, it's like there's constantly more to be learned. There's new things to happen. Even after 20 years, it's like things change, the world changes. And so in the beginning, I wasn't really involved in the weddings so much. I was like just the venue. Whereas I know it was a little bit different on yours. It's like you were there, you were seeing everything. And so for me, I was like, you know, just tell me a little bit about what's happening, but for the most part, it's just an open canvas for you to create whatever you'd like. And so it's more the past couple of years where I've really, really, you know, seen a lot. We did have a 3-day wedding. It was like an Indian-based kind of Vedic style wedding. So that had like a chariot and a horse. Yeah, so that's kind of their style. I'm not sure exactly what the tradition is behind that, but they just had all these different things that were going on for days, and it just was really meaningful. You know, henna painting and all these special decorations and all these considerations like numerology and, you know, astrology and all these kind of things.
Wow.
And so that was cool. That was probably the most spectacular. As far as more of a Western style wedding, you know, we had, you know, some doves that were released at a particular time. And I can't remember exactly what the details were, but I just remember being overwhelmed with the timeline of how there was just so much detail of what was going to happen.
Wow.
So that's when you do have to be a little bit more sensitive and careful with each person. And some people are just like, I don't really care that much about anything except for family and friends are just smiling and we're just celebrating timelines and things like that. It's just, I'm in the backyard just enjoying the moment. Yeah. And so there's a large kind of swath of people that have different, you know, different styles and more details or less details.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there something that people forget on average? You think there's something that on a regular basis, oh, they forgot about this again, or, you know, you bring something up, they're like, oh, really? That's something?
So like in the planning process or like on the day of?
I'd say both. You know, maybe we could get into the planning process to start with. Like, what's something that people forget to plan or you know, afterwards wish they planned, you know, anything like that kind of stands out?
Yeah, you know, a lot of times too, what we're dealing with, because we go a little more expensive than some, not expensive, but extensive with some venues. Like we handle things like transportation, you know, picking people up from the airport, finding accommodations. You know, we look for hotels. Sometimes people are getting married at the beach, sometimes at another venue, at a church. And, you know, they're coming our way for the reception. And so there's a lot of different moving parts.
Logistics.
Yeah, logistics.
Wow,
and
logistics.
It gets more complicated, but you get more, you know, expert, and certain things just start kind of running in the background, and, you know, they fall into place. You have systems and spreadsheets and things like that where it becomes really, really on autopilot. And then there's a few other details where you just have to be a little bit careful, but nothing really sticks out so much as far as what people, you know, forget necessarily, because what I do is they send me an inquiry, and then I just give them like a half an hour speech. Right. I just run through the whole entire thing. I was like, you know, what are you thinking about as far as food goes? You know, what about timelines? You know, what do you think about sunset? What do you think about the pictures? You know, transportation, where are friends going to stay? And I have a good system of, you know, everything that they need. And they basically just check all the boxes. We don't need this. We do need this. We didn't think about this.
Right. So no one's forgetting stuff because you are reminding them.
Yeah.
And they're not running, you know, you're planning. I mean, you're basically even up to like transportation and accommodations. So you're really seeing the big picture with everything involved in a wedding. So maybe for someone who isn't going to have a planner, maybe someone on a budget, you know, cause you're, I mean, an expert planner. You're not just an expert in weddings and venues. I mean, obviously you're planning this start to finish experience, really, isn't it? Like a family experience.
Yeah.
Like it's a wedding is a connection of two families, right? I think you were telling me about this, where it's just this amazing thing that people don't even consider. That this is a uniting of two families, you know? And what are they really going to take away from this wedding and from this moment, from this experience, you know? And I remember you were mentioning the value of, because you have a place where people can stay for a few days together, and you were mentioning how people they have these connections because they've met their mother-in-law for the first time, they met their brother-in-law for the first time, you know, and to have this kickstart into this relationship by all being in this beautiful setting and with a pool and a jacuzzi and pool tables and all these things you have, you know.
Right.
People kind of, I think, forget sometimes. They think about the flowers and they think about this, but really it's just about these two families getting together and this memory that they're building and these relationships that they're building. So like, I guess my question was, for someone who's going to have a small backyard wedding, maybe not even going to have a venue, you know, someone on a budget, like, as far as like some free planning advice, basically, is there anything you could kind of throw out there? Is, look, you only got this much money. Forget about this. Focus on that. You know, is there anything that comes to mind with anything?
Yeah, you know, that's pretty much exactly right. You know, what we're trying to do is we're trying to just make it where the memory is so significant, you know, where it just is something that's so clear in your mind for the rest of your entire life. And so what I found is that if you're rushed in and out of a venue where you get there at, you know, 2 p.m. and then the ceremony starts and then there's the reception and then it's done and then everyone goes back to their hotel and then everyone flies back to their destination, it's like, it can definitely still be spectacular if done right, but it just enriches it a lot more if they do have a few days together to be able to just build more memories around the barbecue, around the pool, around the movie theater, just cooking together, chatting, joking, getting to know each other. So that's one thing that I've done just to try to help, you know, the family bond, you know, longer and deeper. But when it comes down to a budget, you know, it can be a little bit challenging. What I basically try to encourage people, I hit the marks of what I think is the most important. And a lot of times since time immemorial, people have gathered around food, you know, and just being able to enjoy a nice meal and just a lot of laughter and you know, just interacting in a really heartfelt, you know, sincere way and just building memories like that. So we really do try to make sure that we get that menu set for them, depending on their culture, depending on their style, and then a little bit of the decor, the ambiance to kind of just give that extra special feeling. But the main thing is, you know, a lot of people, they're coming to Hawaii. It's already just this beautiful place and, you know, they're coming together and we haven't really had, I don't think we've ever had any time where it was like disappointing. It was just magic every time.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a track record like that. And even with the people that had the low budget at Summit, because we work with venues all over the island, then we have our own portfolio of venues, you know, and we work with you as well. And it's, it really depends too. When you're thinking about the budget, it's like, you can go crazy on flowers. Like you can just go absolutely crazy on flowers.
Right. That's a good point. Because flowers are expensive.
Super expensive.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's
like
crazy.
Even, you know, one really fabulous rose could cost $100, right?
Yeah,
I've seen it.
It's crazy.
Right?
It is crazy how much flowers are.
Yeah. And I did a little research because this is the kind of person I have. I'm wondering, like, how far can it go? Right? It's just, I've always been like
I
this.
see.
When I was a kid, I was reading Guinness Book of World Records.
Right.
Oh my gosh, this guy's so tall. Oh my gosh, this person's so strong. And so I looked up a couple of the most fabulous weddings ever.
Okay.
Right? So this is how far it goes. So this is royalty somewhere. So the budget was really high. And so there was some like hall or something very, very large. I think there was 700 people attending, really large. And the whole thing was decorated. I mean, the whole hall. Like all you saw was flowers. And I mean, literally all you saw was flowers. And then it had the price tag at the bottom. Just the flowers was $2 million.
$2 million.
$2 million. And I think that was the most expensive one. Maybe there was a few other very, very high-end royal, you know, weddings from the past that was just even higher. But these are all real flowers that are going to die and fade like instantly.
That's a good point because myself and you, we're in Hawaii.
Right.
So, I mean, we're very fortunate. We have the weather for growing the best, most beautiful plants.
Yeah.
So, you know, God's on our side.
Right.
But both of we've taken a page out of your book, plants, beautiful plants. Fortunately, my wife and my daughter now are just really into plants. Just they go to nurseries almost every month. They're into plants, propagating. And yourself, my wife takes a lot of experience. So she goes to your place, she's taking notes on the plants you've had, because it's one thing to see it in a pot in a nursery. It's another thing to see it 20 years or however you've had it in the ground, right? And so that's one thing that I know customers of mine, I said, I'm sure they're saying the same thing as yours. They don't really need to spend money on flowers and decor. It's like, sure, some table runners, a little bit on the altar, but everywhere you look, you know, we're not in some sterile hall right? Some conference center last week was, some cigar conference or something, right? We're in like beauty already. So you're already that immersive kind of experience. So that's a great way to save, because everywhere you look, there's flowers. Everywhere you look, there's beautiful plants, because they're in the ground and you're not paying for them, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's another thing too, is find beauty for free. I mean, there's so many beautiful parks and beautiful spots you can go, and then you don't have to worry so much about spending $2 million on flowers. Of course, that's extreme, but that's maybe something that for someone who is looking for a budget and still a beautiful wedding, let nature be the decorator, and have that as your backdrop could also be another something.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you say that too. It comes to mind of people do actually ask me a little bit about, because there's different budgets for sure. There's some people where it's like, as far as the flowers go, as far as like all the decoration with plants, it's like maybe 200. Yeah. And I can easily, and I'll show you later the most spectacular one. We had an arch decoration. So they decorated the arch just so completely that there was no more arch, right? It just had disappeared completely. But then they decorated all around the arch too. There's pots and plants, and they had a really, really strong budget. I think it was 5,000 to 7,000 just for the arch.
Yeah.
And then they decorated a bunch of other things as well. Even though the place was so beautiful, they just wanted to go extra. I've had someone stop by Ross last minute, like bride and groom on the way to the wedding. They just had rented for the day. It was just very, very simple. And they picked up a couple of fake flowers for like $25.
Right.
And they put it on the arch.
Yeah.
And they were happy.
Yeah.
So that's the level. That's the range.
Yeah. Yeah.
So another thing too is when they're a little bit on the budget, I try to get a little bit creative. And so here in Hawaii, on the side of the road, sometimes you'll see these little flower and monstera and kind of palm.
Right.
Really
Growing
cheap.
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Or just, you mean like in the bushes?
Well, no, I mean, some people do stop but little, kind of like little buckets where the side of the road for $5, $10,
Yeah.
torch gingers and things. And so I tell, our couples that you can just clip a few palms around, and you can zip tie those to the arch and around the tables and all these different things. And they often do it. And I have thousands of palms, literally. So you clip like 20 palm, leaves.
Yeah.
It's not going to even notice it.
Right.
So that's one way where they've been, really budget friendly. And of course, other ways that people have done, lower budgets is that there's just other gardens and on the beach. You can get married on the beach in certain beaches in Hawaii and just save huge amounts of money. So, there's definitely ways.
Yeah. With the ocean in the background.
Yeah.
And a sunset and a beach. What else do you really need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do that now, by the way. I'm not sure if you know, but.
So you have ceremonies at beaches.
At the beaches.
Oh, yeah.
And I would suggest that to you, by the way.
Yeah.
Because it's a nice option. It's not that hard.
Right.
We have a truck. We have a team. Put the arch and the chairs in the truck. Go down to the beach. Get married.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of an extra cost, but it's special for them because a lot of times they're from Detroit, they're from Texas,
and they've never seen an ocean.
Maybe never even seen it. And even if they've been to Hawaii, this is going to be their dream backdrop. And on your side of the island, just drop dead gorgeous. And sunsets over here, oh my gosh, we don't have the sunset so much like right on the beach, but it's a little bit of a reflection type of sunset. But you have the more spectacular one, so people are going to like die for that. So then people that really want to do a beach wedding, I mean, they love the garden and they love the garden reception, but then you can get more clients because the people that want the beach now are going to do the ceremony there, and they're going to do the reception here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we have some really nice beaches. I mean, so many nice beaches 10 minutes away from us. So it's not like it's at all an endeavor to go to a beach wedding and then just pack up and head over to the gardens and finish off your ceremony. Yeah.
It's not that hard. And a lot of times the people that want to do that are the smaller weddings anyways. So we usually have 50.
Right.
And as you probably know, you probably experienced it because we constantly experience this, is the ceremony is often a lot smaller than the reception.
Yeah.
If there's like a 200 person reception, a lot of times it might be a 50 or 100 person ceremony.
Yeah, that was a learning curve for me. I was surprised.
Yeah.
How few people sometimes attend the ceremony.
Yeah.
Because we have our max is 200, and so I'm thinking, okay, here we go. We got this. Going to have 200 people at the ceremony.
Yeah.
It's like they have like 20, 30 chairs and a few people standing up. Like it's chill for. I mean, I deal with a lot of local weddings, people from my area, which is Waianae, west of Oahu, and so I'm starting to learn that side of it, which is how the they want to have their ceremony real chill, not so like sometimes like the last wedding we had was California based and local based, and they had the whole, you know, wedding party, bride, you know, the best man. They had them all lined up at the altar, you know, on both sides. The bridal party, the groomsmen, but that's rare for us. I mean, we usually it's just the bride and groom and an officiant, real quick, pretty chill, 10-minute, 20-minute ceremony. I do, and off to the party. So that's been interesting to see that kind of that style, you know. But that's what I've been learning is my market is local kind of, and I was surprised by that. I was thinking I would be more, you know, because I came from the Airbnb world, and that's that hospitality side and international side, and I was just thinking, oh, weddings, you know, would be just people similar kind of clientele coming from the mainland and stuff, but it's been just all in my neighborhood. Yeah. And which is been nice because they've, in a lot of ways, I've just learned how to do a local wedding. Like I'm branching out slowly into bigger weddings, but like more international. But I mean, I know people on my street want, you know, because there's not that many. I don't think we're maybe one of the only. There's a few actually wedding venues on this island, on this side. I mean, right. But not many. And so, you know, a lot of come here and I just see what they care about and what they don't care about. And so I just focus on what they can care about. And so I can cut off a lot of the costs too with that angle of it. So, yeah. And you've had clients from every stretch. You've had them all from all over the world, right? I mean, is there a country that you haven't had with 1,000?
Yeah, so I will tell you a little bit about kind of how it works and what I've seen. In general, people don't like to travel more than 10 hours on a flight to go to a wedding, not only for cost, but jet lag, different considerations. So usually people like the East Coast of the United States is really as far as they get. Occasionally there are going to be some people from the UK or other parts of Europe, but I don't think I have had anyone from Eastern Europe. And then the Middle East, Russia, it's so far, right, and it's so expensive. And there's beautiful islands closer. You know, there's the Canary Islands, which is kind of like their Hawaii of Europe, that people get married there a lot, you know, different places. So,
and Japan, I mean, we have.
Yeah. So Japan, that's less than 10 hours.
Because, people, I mean, we know that people from Japan love Hawaii. I mean, it's just a kind of standard tourist, Japanese tourist.
You know, I lived in the Philippines, right? So Philippines is way closer to Japan.
Oh,
and it's beautiful.
Oh, that's right.
But there's a certain flavor and a certain style about Hawaii that the Philippines doesn't have for those Japanese clients. You know, there's some just drop dead gorgeous place in the Philippines for sure, but there's a few aspects to Hawaii that are more enticing generally for the Japanese. So we have Japanese for sure. We have Australian, New Zealand, a little bit more, you know, China, Korea, these spaces and things like that. But if you were to look at the lion's share of the people, it's really California, and actually we have a good amount of Canadians. And 5-hour flights, so really nice, super affordable. And there's a huge population in California too that's going to get married. And California and Hawaii, there's a really good relationship there because of how close it is, and also generally there's a lot of affluence in California. So it's like, just getting away from their kind of deserty hustle and bustle, LA, San Francisco, whatever life, and coming to tropical Hawaii and get married in this, just because I was actually just in California. And there's a lot of really attractive features to it for sure, like conveniences, and there's national parks and there's places you can drive. But to be super honest, when you're driving up and down the freeways of San Diego and LA, the beauty of Hawaii is 100x. Oh, yeah. I mean, just the flowers and the mountains and the ocean, and there's just no comparison. Yeah. Even we walked through these just drop dead gorgeous neighborhoods where homes are 20, 30, 40 million. And they have all the money in the world to landscape. Even with that, to try to beat Hawaii's natural landscape is really, really tough. Wow. It's just the environment, and it just doesn't nurture it the way it does here. So it's so attractive. And so we haven't had people from just everywhere in the world, but we do have a good international clientele. But however, that being said, we have had a lot of local weddings. So I'm also quite familiar. We had a huge one last night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, hugest one we've ever had.
How many people?
It was 250.
250.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
250. Yeah, and we max at about 300. We have never pushed it to 300, but at that particular venue, some of the other venues that we have are a little bit smaller, and I know yours is 200. So it was absolutely fine. It worked out great. We had a 15 passenger van just to make sure that they were shuttling to the parking lots, because we have extra parking lots that people go to. And but yeah, I'd say we're probably 40% local. And there is a difference sometimes, not always, but a lot of times what you'll find is that according to the budget is how more detailed oriented they are, and casual versus they want things to be a certain way. So in generally what I've found, and that wasn't true last night, by the way, it was a local couple that just had a money tree in their backyard. I was just like, wow, they just decorated everything, and just it was intense. I'll actually send you a little video. It was gorgeous. And it just went beautifully. So
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah. So what's the transportation thing is cool. You've been doing that for a while with shuttles, and because that's a big part. People don't think about. You think how convenient that is, because 9 times out of 10 there's alcohol involved.
Yeah.
And then what? Designated driver. So you got 50 cars, you got 50 designated drivers out of 100 people or whatever, or 200 people, whatever. So, being able to have that must be really nice. Have you been doing the shuttles for a while? You've been doing
So, when you're in a little bit more of an intimate setting where you're not like way out in the country in a ranch or something like that, you have a neighborhood, you want to keep everything, relatively low key, but you also want the party to be, really amazing. It's just that parking on the street and people on the street and people, inebriated and all these different things, you just try to make it so that it runs really smoothly. So we brought in the shuttles a few years ago, and it really worked. And then we started picking people up from the airport and taking them to their hotels. And now we're starting to get to the point where I just messaged one of my friends. I said, you want to go 50-50 on me with the 50 passenger van? Because he could use the van and so could I, not every day, but I'll use it for my events and he'll use it for his business. And then I can pick up that many more people from the airport. So what I noticed too, if we want to do like a little segue into how do you monetize a wedding venue?
Sure.
More.
Yeah.
Right. And for your information too, we've been talking about this a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just always adding more and more services that are connected to that particular industry.
Right.
So if I was able, and I haven't looked into this yet, but maybe it's possible, if I was able to get some discounts or coupons or some kind of relationship with like travel agencies and flights. I mean, people have to fly here usually, unless they're local. So that's the way I thought about with transportation. And originally it was just a venue. And then I bought some tables and chairs, and then that added on to, some products and some services. We charge to do the setup, the breakdown, the cleanup. It's the whole package, because they would have to bring someone in anyways. And so that's how you can just build and grow your business, And if I was really, really ambitious and I really wanted to go for it, I would start my own catering company. I would start my own floral company. I would start my own DJ company. I mean, it's almost endless. And I think I speculate a little bit because I haven't looked into that much, but think about Amazon and how it started and what they have branched out. I mean, now they all own Whole Foods.
Right.
And who knows what they could own if they just wanted to go into every market. I mean, right. I sometimes speculate they could go into every market in the whole entire world.
Yeah. I mean, they're like the hub of buying stuff.
Yeah.
It's like you just think, I got to buy something on Amazon. I mean, it's like second nature now.
I'm a little bit frustrated because I think about how sometimes I want to support local, or sometimes I just want to, buy something from somewhere else. But gosh, the convenience of that.
I know.
And the returns and just everything. it's too easy.
It is. Yeah.
So that's my strategy with the wedding.
Right.
I'm trying to make it super, super easy for them to get everything through me.
And I've seen that. I've seen the more that I start to have, they're just like, oh, you have that. Oh, okay. Check it off. Yeah. And then it's like, it's not just one less item to check off, because you're dealing with money. So if you're getting chairs from one company, for example, you got to talk to them about chairs. What chairs? You got to pay them. What's the return fee? What do I got to do? When are they coming? What time are they going to be leaving? It's like, that's not just chairs. It's like 20 things that are connected to just chairs. And if you get tables from another place and linens from another, it just drive you nuts. Mm-hmm. So the more you can have from one person you're dealing with and one timeline and one kind of company, it's just infinitely less stressful.
Yeah, for sure. And, I have my margins on everything, so I give discounts the more things they do.
Right, the more you can take
and
off.
Sometimes people will bring in their own chairs, but then I'll have our tables, and then the rental company will accidentally, or who knows, on purpose, maybe, grab a couple of our things, and we don't have our name. So then, of course, the learning curve was write our name on everything.
Yeah.
And then they write their name on everything. So it's really differentiated because we have the same type of tables and chairs and things like that, you know? And then you sign contracts with all these different rental places. And then if some of their stuff is lost, now you're liable, and you have to pay each company their own setup fees and delivery fees. And I just have it all.
Right.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
And then trucks too, figuring out when they're showing up and stuff like that, and can they get in, because there's a lot of logistics with moving stuff around. It's not just a simple thing. We had a truck come in here, and you know they had a tough time because of this or that, you know. So, you know, and they're calling up the bride if they don't have a planner, you know, and it's just one more thing that the bride's got to worry about, you know. And then you set up everything for them too. You're setting up things, so it's what's nice about the setup before, and especially if you have a company that do it, it's not, you're not working at your wedding, right? It's not a job anymore, right? Because a lot of people they try to save, and it's, I want a beautiful wedding, but you're really just getting a job, you know. You're learning the wedding business, you know, from scratch for one event, you know. It doesn't make a lot of sense, you know. Pay a little extra and allow this experience to be what it is, you know, and that is your wedding, not your job, you know. Right. And so that's what's really nice too, when you have it all kind of set up for you and laid out. You know, you're not a manager and a delegator and a linen steamer or whatever, all the things you got to do. So the more you can do, the better, I find. You know, that's actually a really good point. And to the point that you had made before about some people, what they forget or what they don't realize, that's actually one of them. So occasionally the brides, because the wedding coordination / planning can be very, very expensive. I actually recently redid my pricing. And there's some people on the island that have $6,000 planning and coordination packages, and they're very professionally done, and it's very extensive. But I think we were talking about that before I came. And so, you know, there's thousands of dollars that they're thinking about saving. When I had this one wedding call up, they want to have 250 people, right? And their budget is kind of mid. And I said, well, what do you think about, you know, the price? And they're like, well, how about 30,000? And I was like, well, the food's 25,000 though. So like, we can't even get the venue. And they're like 25,000. I said, yeah, you know, a lot of the hiring, because you want good food. I mean, you want it to be special. You want it to look good. You want it to taste good. You just want the whole thing to be, it's like a performance. And it doesn't have to cost that much, but that's our average right now. It's $100 a head for the good catering. And we do, in general, our vendors are like 4.5 stars, you know, versus like 5 being top end. Ritz-Carlton type of just, you know, Tom Cruise wedding. Tom Cruise spent $2 million on his wedding. You know, he makes, you know, it wasn't a lot for him. Right. He rented a castle in like Italy. It was amazing. Yeah. You know, and probably what I would do is if I was in his position, you know, it's like, let's make this, you know, super, super nice. But so there's different ranges. And so sometimes they're looking at the whole entire budget and they're like, okay, well, maybe my family and friends can cook up some food. And sometimes it's like, yeah, if we're going to save 25,000, it's probably $5,000 for the ingredients. So we actually saved 20,000. You know, where can we save? And they're thinking about the wedding coordination. And amazingly, and you were at my wedding, I was helping a little bit with the coordination and my wife. And if I would have known my wife better, because there's just certain details that over years you start to, you know, understand people more. And then if I would have known even more about weddings, even though I owned a wedding venue, I hadn't been involved back in 2019 with so much the coordination, the planning part of it. And I should have just known that you do not coordinate and plan your own wedding. You don't. Because the work mixing in with the enjoyment of the whole process it's just, they're so just opposites. Yeah. So we see this sometimes where they try to save money and do this. It generally, except for, unless it's a really small one where it's super casual people, it's absolute disaster. Yeah, because if a vendor can't show up at this time, or something happened because, you know, someone spilt some water on an electrical outlet, you know, it's going to go back to you. because you're the planner. It's your thing. If you don't have at least someone in your family that's going to have that, a buffer, they're the one planning, they're the one having a coordinator. But ideally, you get someone, at least a day of coordinator, some professional that can spend 5 hours for the main, because you don't need someone for the whole day, really, even. You get off the stuff to the ceremony a couple hours before the ceremony. The ceremony is super important. After that, it's not that big a deal. Now it's a party, now it's just speeches and, but all that stuff up into the ceremony, making sure, oh, this person can't park. There was an accident down the road. There's traffic. You don't want to be trying to put your dress on, answering phone calls. So just having that someone is just, it's so worth it. I think.
It's such a good point, because that's exactly what happened to me. I had a particular type of wedding where there's a lot of details. And we didn't do our due diligence on our preparation. And that's where the planning comes in. And I do really agree the wedding coordination is the most important, but also with the planning, if you don't really know much about planning and what really has to happen, you didn't make the timeline that well, you didn't call the vendors, you didn't give them the right address. People have showed up at, a hotel in Waikiki, supposed to come to me in the North Shore. Right. And they're like, hey, we're here, and actually, and vice versa. People have showed up at my place and they're supposed to be in Waikiki, because similar names.
And that's not that's a far drive.
Far.
I mean, that's like 2 hours of traffic.
Yeah. And when you're looking at the wedding timelines, 2 hours, it's hopefully you're going to be there early. Otherwise it's just not going to happen.
Right.
So with the planning, it's just the expertise of the planner to understand the details, just really being able to see the holes in the whole picture. That's really important. So it ends up being, for most people, really worth it. But the day of coordination for sure is the one. So in my wedding, there was certain ingredients, certain flowers, certain things that had to be there. In the middle of the wedding, you remember, I'm walking around trying to figure it out, And just luckily, my wife is just tolerant. But afterwards, she just let me know. She's like, if we needed to do, if we could have done this over, we would have had someone take care of all of that. And also we would have planned it more. And, she said, I thought you kind of knew, and I said, I thought I kind of knew too. Yeah. I mean, she's like, you're in the wedding business. So I thought, and I was like, yeah. And ours was obviously a little bit more different, than some people's. But that was a really good learning experience, because after that, actually, it's funny how life is, right? Because sometimes you need a problem to show you something, right? And so every time I've done any wedding and there's been a problem, it's been an incredible learning experience. And that's actually one of my biggest lessons in life, is that you're never going to be able to get it perfect. There's going to be something that's even slightly off. And if you can adjust and get better, then you get a better outcome the next time. And now, one of the reasons people are so comfortable, it's not like I try to impress people with 1,000 or when it was 800 or whatever it was, because people are like, wow, but what if I would have been in the wedding business for 20 years and I had 100 venues and I put 50,000 out there, Of course, I wasn't at 50,000 different weddings. But the main thing is that we just seen what has gone wrong so many times. And just like that, I'm not sure what the exact quote is, but I always go back to the same thing. When Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, you may have heard the story. This is really cool. Is the interviewer or whatever was saying, wow, you failed 10,000 times or whatever it was before you got it. And he's like, I didn't fail 10,000 times. He's like, I just found out 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Right.
So with the wedding, I probably so-called failed 10,000 times, but it was just not the ideal way. And now we have a system that's almost just locked in just perfectly. It's almost impossible for it to fail.
Yeah, then everybody can focus on what's important.
Right.
Because it's such a wonderful thing, and it is going to be this thing you remember for the rest of your life. You have all the video and the flowers and the relationships, people are going to talk. I mean, my wife and I were talking about our wedding the other day. It's just going to be this something that you're going to talk about, and it's going to be something that is going to be a part of your life, And before I got into weddings, I was kind of this guy. I was like, it's wow, I can't believe people spend all this money on a wedding. You could put it into a house and all these things. I was definitely on that side of it. But now that I've seen how it, when it comes together and you see, people crying and giving their hearts at the vows and the connections, the people when they're just actually, they're so, that's what's so nice about being in our job too. You're with these people at such an amazing moment. You know, I get these relationships from people. I talk to them for 20 seconds and they're just, you know, almost in tears and stuff. And you're just, these connections you get with people at a wedding. Cause it's just, I mean, I can't imagine, my daughters haven't been married yet, but I can imagine, you know, that moment when you're giving your daughter away or your son away, you know, and you're seeing them and you're just so happy for them that they're, you know, pick this nice partner and all these things. And that's what you want it to be about, right? Yeah. You don't want it to be about the vendor can't find an outlet, you know, you don't want it to be, you know, taken away from anything. And so that the more you can, whatever you need to do just to have all the stuff in the background, and really what it's about is just the family and the connection, and everything's just the icing on the cake with that. You know, the flowers make it more beautiful. It's just an expression of, you know, the love that you have for this other person, right? You know, and how serious you're taking the relationship. That's what I think that's the thing, that it's not a waste of money. It's not $50,000 you're throwing down the drain. No, you're saying that this is important to me, right? Because isn't that whatever you spend your money on, right? That's what you're saying. This is important,
right? The value.
This is important. Yes, I might be paying for this, you know, for a couple years. You know, I might be going a little bit of debt, but I'm saying that this is important. The family's important, you know. And when your kids look back on it and people look back on it, they're going to see like, wow, you guys really took this seriously. This was really important, you know? And so I think there's what do you think about like that kind of aspect of it? You know?
I'm the same. I'm on the same page. I mean, you know me pretty well, and we're similar in that sense that, you know, we really do like kindness and good energy and family and just care and love and everything like that. And so I like being in that industry because that's the energy that's around it, but that's the energy around it when things are going smoothly. There have been some times where, you know, a bride was really picky about it not being rainy, but as you know, in Hawaii, I mean, even in Waianae, you know.
Yeah. It's rains every day in Hawaii, no matter what.
Right,
no matter
exactly. What. And especially up on the North Shore, it's like, you know, I was just talking to our neighbor and I was looking at the clouds, and there's no way for me to tell for sure what's going to happen. Right. I mean, even the darkest cloud may just wait there and do nothing.
Right.
But usually the darker, the thicker, the more moist the air, it's coming, right? You can kind of feel it. And I did hear that some people are actually absolute experts and they can tell you for sure if it's going to happen or not. Right? I remember that I heard this story and I was like, what, really? Wow. You know, 100%, you know, pretty much guarantee they know what they're talking about, but everyone has their own talents. Right. And so I was talking to our neighbor and she said, well, yeah, you know, this area, I've lived here for 20 years and it'll come through for at least 5 minutes, you know, every single day. If you see that cloud, that you're going to get, you never know when it's going to be. And so people from the mainland, you know, they just don't want, you know, the rain can just make things soggy and it's just not the ultimate mud, and things like that are not like wedding dress friendly. Right. And I've seen it all. Like You've seen
the mud.
Incredible. Yeah. Oh man. You know, and you have so many weddings and you're in the yard and the grass is, you know, kind of holding on for dear life. And it's just, you know, it's like that. And we have this one picture, if you look on Instagram, the couple, and it's so beautiful to see this too, is they got one of those shots where they're both jumping, right? In midair, it got caught, but they're jumping in a huge, gigantic puddle that's like inches deep, and it's coming down, you know, just like Noah's Ark times.
They're like getting into it,
and they're super happy.
Yeah. They're super happy. Oh, that's awesome.
So occasionally, though, someone is like, they're so sensitive the rain is just not their thing, and they don't believe that the rain's the blessing or whatever it is like that, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, you do feel bad because there's not a lot of options at that point because you picked an outdoor venue. Yeah. And, you know, we do have the tented area, but there's just nothing set up for that, you know?
Right.
So yeah, that really beautiful energy and everything like that. I mean, imagine you're in some job where the customer service is just all about complaints. You know, I could see how you'd come home from that and man, you might be worn down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So we're fortunate to be in that, you know, and generally if we do our job right and there's not any external factors that are just absolutely outrageous,
right? It's
beautiful.
Yeah.
Really beautiful.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's a fun part, and it's such a team effort, you know, and it's all just comes down to just trying to make it really nice for the bride and groom, you know, and just trying to get it so they don't have to worry about anything. And it's always nice. Like you said, you've done 1,000. It's like I can't think of one that was just a disaster.
Yeah.
And you've done 1,000, and that's something that for people who are listening, it's your wedding will be your wedding, and there's going to be a lot of little nuances, little things that come up, and that's going to be the things that you remember. It might start raining, and you're gonna laugh because your uncle pulled out an umbrella and it had pink on it, and they're gonna make fun of him, right? That's all these little things that that's part of it. If you have that right attitude, I think most people do, right?
Yeah.
That, of like, this is just a wonderful thing, and so yeah, it's. I hope people got something from this. I hope they, for someone who's looking to get married and thinking about the weddings, get help with the planning early. It doesn't necessarily have to buy the biggest, most expensive planner, but having someone in your corner that knows, it's really valuable. And whether it's a venue or a coordinator or someone, don't let the burden just ruin, because it's stressful, and you don't want to be stressed out for a year just because you're going to get this, make it easy on yourself as possible. Because I've had a few people cancel where they're just like, it's too much, there's this problem, and I'm just like, oh, what a bummer. I mean, they're so close, you know, and I bet it would have been fine still, so don't let the small stuff overwhelm you. That was I did an interview with a bride and groom, and that was their big advice, was like, don't sweat the small stuff. And they were very much sweating the small stuff. Like, they were very detailed oriented. They had all these little things. They wanted this and this. And afterwards, their big advice was, don't worry about it so much, which was really cool to see, because it was remember that wedding you said, oh, there's a beautiful wedding, that one you mentioned a few times at my place. That was their wedding, and they went to town. I mean, they were designers,
Right.
and even them were just like, you know what, we probably overdid it in some ways. It was so beautiful because of the family and because of everything, and we're glad we put all those details into it, but don't sweat it. Put everything you got into it, but don't worry about it, like, just do your best. It's going to be beautiful no matter what, because it's your wedding. So any kind of closing things?
I think that's such a good point too. I just want to touch really quick on something that really resonated a lot with me, the value. A lot of times it's like, why would like a top-end heart surgeon make so much per, this is life or death. This requires a very steady hand. This requires incredible, education and just experience, right? So you put a, and it's not necessarily about the money, but it's more of like the symbol of the energy and the effort and the care, and money just happens to be this like tool, the facilitator to be able to create the thing. And so, whether it's the really beautiful ring or the beautiful dress or the beautiful venue location or just the whole thing, if you can, just pay close attention to those details and just make it super extra special, because 5, 10, 15 years down the road, you'll look back and be like, I'm glad that we really did it right. And I'll just draw one more analogy, because I just am so addicted to these analogies. If you're like Elon Musk and you're working on those rockets, it's like the trajectory of where you want to go is so important, because you're off by 1 degree and thousands of miles away, you're off by thousands of miles.
Right.
So they put so much money and time and energy into the details to get the trajectory. So if you start your marriage on the right foot by working together on this beautiful project of the ceremony, the reception, the whole thing, then that'll be like your trajectory.
Right.
And that's what I tell people. I said, I want to create this amazing moment for all your family and friends, not just you, for the whole entire group, to just kind of be bonded to create the best possible scenario environment for your future.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Cool.
Well, thanks for having me. It was really fun.
Yeah,
and it went well. It was comfortable. Great.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
So I hope people with planning weddings or getting married or get something from this and get in touch with us.
Yeah. Why don't we tell them where we're at?
So
Kapila Gardens.
Kapila Gardens. Yeah. KapilaGardens.com at Kapila Gardens. So if you're looking to get married on the west of Oahu, and then you have a bunch of on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah. So Oahu wedding venues and villas. Actually, sorry, villas and venues. So because we take care of the planning and the coordination, we plug into Kuloa Ranch and Sunset Ranch and Waimea Valley and Kapila Gardens and so many different places. So we have a portfolio of our own, And then we just do all kinds of party rental and services for all kinds of venues now. So we're all over the whole entire island now.
Yeah.
So that's been really great. So you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Wedding Wire, The Knot, Here Comes the Guide, our website, Instagram, TikTok, looking at, we'll be on YouTube now. So this will be on there. And this will be wonderful because I think, how long was it? Like an hour?
Yep.
So an hour of information where people, it's almost like this PDF resource of a bunch of information, and you can just always click on that. So
yeah. Hopefully this gets to the ears that need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks,
really
Phineas.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Have a good one.
You
Take
too.
care.